everybody, it is me, Lance Meister, the Undead Viking of the board game world. I'm here with my Gray Fox Games channel here to talk about something really briefly. Just a quick little video, give you some thoughts on some things. Well, one thing that I was thinking about. Recently, somebody asked me, inevitably when I meet somebody and like a friend of a friend or a relative of a friend kind of thing, and you start going through that standard conversation of how you get to know each other. It's like, how many kids do you, are you married? Do you have kids? How many kids? How old? So on and so forth. Eventually, somebody says, what do you do for a living? And usually, if I'm like not in the mood to like answer a bunch more questions, I will say I work in publishing. It is the most generic way to say I help create board games without having to say I make board games for a living. And it isn't because I don't want to talk about it. It's just it's one of those things where, like I said, it's like it's an answer to a question that always leads to more questions, and they're usually the same questions every single time. And sometimes I'm really excited to talk about it because maybe I can tell the person is interested. Like when I met my son's weightlifting coach, we ended up talking about something. I don't know what it was, and I said, "Hey, it's like, oh, you got a big weekend?" He's like, "Oh, I've got a big session of this game called Nemo's War that I've been playing a lot of, and I'm really excited to get home to do that." And I was like, "Holy cow, this guy!" I mean, it isn't like, "Oh, I've got a big game of Clue at home." He was like, "I have a big game of Nemo's War, a solo game, and a pretty esoteric game as well." I mean, but I knew what it was. So we ended up talking about board games. Anyway, totally all over the place right here. The point of this video is eventually somebody who's like that's in the know. It's like, oh, how long have you worked in board games? And I've had when I had my YouTube channel, well, I still technically have my original YouTube channel of Undead Viking, but I've had that for 15 years, and now I've worked in the industry for a good 11 or so. And they say, well, what's the biggest change? How has that industry changed over that period of time? And it's a thoughtful question. I mean, there's a lot of like personal things I could say as far as how it's changed, but I'm talking about just generically um, the the industry as a whole. How has it changed? And honestly, it's kind of a boring answer and one that you probably know as well. But it is just the sheer amount of games that are coming out. Way back in the day, when you came out with a game, it was one of, for example, there were times when I knew people who went to Origins, the convention, and they'd say, "Yeah, I really don't know if anything's going to release at Origins or anything new is going to be there." I remember somebody went and they said the only new game that was released at Origins here was Warriors, which is an older dice game. You may or may not know about it, but and everybody was just crazy about it because somebody actually released a game at Origins. That just wasn't done. It wasn't considered to be the zenith of the year. Everybody waited until Gen Con to show off their brand new thing. Now, because of the fact that publishers are coming out with, instead of having, like, I shouldn't say all publishers, but there's a lot of publishers that have, you know, five, six, seven, eight, nine, even 10 new releases in a single year. And they space those out. And so it is much more common to see new releases at almost nearly any convention during the year. And I'm talking about the big ones. I'm talking about, I mean, I'm talking about Origins, Gen Con, PAX Unplugged, BGG Con, things like that, where you're talking about thousands of people in attendance. The sheer amount of stuff that's out there right now is both wonderful and also it's a challenge. It is a giant challenge to show up with a game that's going to carve out its spot in the hobby. I mean, we at Gray Fox Games have, several games that we think, well, bottom line is we print games we think are fun. If it doesn't pass our internal fun metric, we don't make it. That's the bottom line. But we are very fortunate that we have games like Champions of Midgard, Reavers of Midgard, Last Light, and of course Deception, Murder in Hong Kong, that have all like carved out their little spot in the industry that people are continuing to play them again and again and again and again. Now, that doesn't mean games that I mentioned like Ragnaroks or For Science, or like the recent Clans of Midgard and Reavers of Midgard, the card game, aren't fun games, but sometimes those games just don't get enough eyes on them. Arcana Rising, fantastic game, fantastic engine building game that I encourage everybody to track down a copy and play, because if you like engine building with a fantasy theme, that's a fantastic game to play as well. But regardless, my whole point of this is that when you release these games and they show up, I mean, this isn't supposed to be a commercial for Gray Fox, but this is the Gray Fox YouTube channel. But After the Empire, a game that made tons of top 10 lists. And we have expansion material we're developing right now in the background for that. Stuff like that. We're very fortunate that we're making games that are really connecting with a core group of an audience, and people are playing those games and clamoring for more. But it is difficult because the number of games that come out every single year make it very difficult for even established publishers, such as Gray Fox Games and others, that to make a dent, to show up and have people get excited about something. And it has gone from having a small little pond and being a big fish in that small little pond, but the pond keeps getting big, and it's tough to grow as a fish to continue to maintain that size reference to the size of the pond. So that's the biggest change. It's just, this has been an industry that has been exploding and exploding and exploding year after year after year. And it's a good thing. It challenges us. Lots of cool new games come out. And it challenges us as publishers to continue to make innovative games, make fun games, and be noticed by our people. And it demands that we work hard at those things to make sure that we as a company is viable, and also something that we take pride in, and because we don't want to put something out that isn't to the letter or the mark that we set for ourselves. But that's kind of a long-winded, all over the world story. But somebody, like I said, recently asked me about that. Somebody that discovered who I was and what I did for a living, and they asked me that question, and I gave kind of it's just like lots of games coming out. But then I thought about it more, and I considered it more, and I realized that was a really, really simple answer. And I guess I wanted to give a big and much more longer answer here in this video. So if you've been following the board game hobby for a long time, I would love to know what you think has changed in the hobby for you, either personally or things you've observed. I'd like you to tell me what you think is really great about this change about the hobby, and what maybe isn't so great about the hobby. And ultimately, also, if there's something you'd like to hear me and Josh talk about with one of these videos, I'd love for you to give us those suggestions. Put those in the comments below. And as always, please hit the whole like button, share this around, subscribe, you know what I'm talking about. Hit that little bell. We greatly appreciate it. Until next time, that's me, Lance Meister. Take care.